The views and opinions of this broadcast do not reflect the views and opinions of Armed Media, New Productions and its affiliates. Enjoy the show.
Good evening and welcome to Let's Talk Careers with Sara on Armed Radio every Wednesday at 10 p.m. Eastern Time. While I am going to be talking about our career goals and what to implement in your strategy, if you have a question, you can message me on Facebook, Let's Talk Careers with Sara, and I will answer them while I'm on air. So I'm going to start about what are the steps of getting started with the career goals. So there are 5 steps. Well, the first step will be assessment. And the assessment needs to be done while we are thinking of what is it that makes you want you to change your career. So let's start with the concept that many of us went to college, right? And we got a degree. And while not quite sure why we got the degree, we then began our professional lives as teachers or salespersons or nurses or accountants or lawyers, and discovered we didn't like our chosen career. What looked so promising from the halls of academia turned out to be less interesting when we got up close and took a good look at it. The fact is, we all need continually to reassess who we are. The best businesses do that, day in and day out. We do need to reassess on a weekly or monthly basis not only who we are, but our strategies for achieving these goals and where we are in relation to our goals. There are certain times when our strategy itself may need to be re-evaluated. Such an assessment may include some type of formal testing. And often, however, just talking about the issue will bring to the surface some concerns or wrinkles long buried and mostly forgotten. Reassessing your strategy doesn't have to be a dramatic or traumatic soul-searching experience, but working with someone else may help facilitate the process. Ask your friends to assess what they believe your strengths, your weaknesses are. Ask for honesty without brutality. What do they think you are good at, bad at? Do they think you play well with others, or are you better on your own? Are you a self-starter, easy to get along with, punctual, a follower more than a leader? The concept of being a change agent, again, someone who proposes, endorses, and supports change in today's marketplace, is one that is gaining momentum and popularity. Companies themselves have to be change agents. They have to be able to stop on a dime and follow the market. If they don't, they are not going to be in the marketplace for long. Consequently, many companies are looking for people who can respond in kind. One of the things it's important to discover in the assessment process is whether you are receptive to the fundamental idea of change. You don't want to build a career strategy in the field of, say, technology, where change is the order of the day, if you are not a person who is all that comfortable with change. It's in that way that your assessment of yourself factors into the process. You've got to be honest with yourself about your needs, wants, and abilities. It is the foundation for the other 4 steps. So the second step is create a statement about your goals. Right? Now you are assessing what you are good at, and now you are creating a statement about your goals. The point here is to sum up what your goal is and put it in 1 or 2 sentence statement. It's best to operate on a small scale, at least to start. Perhaps you can work on curing world hunger after you get a job? After doing your assessment, you'll have a better idea of who you are and what's important to you. Maybe money is not the driving force in your life. Perhaps doing something meaningful, working for a company that provides a service that's beneficial to society is more important to you at this stage of your life. Instead of working for a beer company or a bank, perhaps a job with an educational company that provides a needed service is more in line with your needs. Your goal statement should reflect your aims and beliefs about what you want from a job. If it's money, put that down. It's probably the number one concern of a majority of people, and you are a step ahead if you know that about yourself. As Shakespeare put it, to thine own self be true. There are plenty of people who want to help cure world hunger. Personally, I think it's a great idea, but I know enough about myself to know that I'm not the guy to do it. Some people have spent 5, 10, 15 years doing things that perhaps provided a good living, but didn't really fire their rockets. I don't mean they're despondent over it, but they are not living life to the fullest. I am a perfect example of that kind of existence. And I know another person is in the same boat. So I'm going to tell you that other person that I know spent 25 years in corporate America, made a good living, got his share of the awards and kudos, but he wasn't really happy about it. After he finally did an honest self-assessment and wrote his goal statement, he left corporate America and embarked on a new career coaching, just like me. As I love and he loves it and I love it, and I can hardly wait to get up in the morning just like he does. And I'm really pumped about what I do. And in my element, it's in my zone. As part of my own initial self-assessment, I asked other people what they thought I was good at, what they thought I wasn't so good at, and what they saw as my weaknesses and my strength. And I prefaced my questions with a "please be honest, but don't hurt my feelings" speech. Turned out they were very open about it, and the one thing that came up time and again was that they felt I was very good at developing other people's skills and that I ought to do something along those lines. So now we have did the assessment. We created a statement about your goals, and now the next step is develop a strategic plan. And how do you get from where you are to where you want to be? What tactics do you use? What actions are appropriate? Once you know something about yourself and have created a goal statement indicating where you want to go, you need to develop a strategy on how to get there. So I'll give you an example of Paul. Paul is a good example of strategy development. He had a degree in business, got into the job market, took 2 or 3 corporate positions while he worked his way up the food chain. He ended up managing an entire division for a well-known company. Then one morning he woke up and in an unguarded moment realized that he wasn't happy about what he was doing. For all his experience in management, when he was honest with himself, he realized that he didn't like managing people. I can understand that. I love working with people, coaching people, but not necessarily managing people. Working with Paul, he and I determined that what he wanted was to be in a position where he was responsible only to himself, and that he wanted to be in a fast-moving industry. His goal statement reflected a desire to get a degree or certification in technology that would allow him to enjoy a reasonable income as well as more flexibility and freedom. And if you look at the technology field today, 1/3 of the workforce is made up of contract labor, people working on a project basis. He loved the idea of working project to project, deal to deal, taking months off in between if he wanted to. So the strategy had to address the best way to accomplish that. One of his tactics was to talk to the tech schools in the area, trying to get a feel for what they offered, talking to students in school and those who had graduated in order to get a fuller picture of the strengths and weaknesses of such contract employees. He audited a few classes. He was unsure about whether he wanted to be a programmer or a network systems engineer, so he accompanied graduates in both fields to see how they functioned on the job. He finally decided on being a system engineer, but it wouldn't have happened that way if he hadn't developed a strategy that allowed him to explore both fields before he plunged in. A client by the name of Elaine came to me after having spent years in the educational field. It had become increasingly bureaucratic and frustrating for her. During the assessment and goal phase, we found that she was particularly interested in being consultant to corporate America. She could apply her educational skills in helping a corporation, primarily through human resources, do a better job of hiring and retaining employees. Of course, she already had experience in developing curricula, being aware of student needs, and so on. Her desire fit perfectly into the current dilemma in American business of how to be sensitive to the needs of prospective employees in the face of rapidly changing employment practices. We got together and wrote down several ideas about the role she could play in helping them to do just that, applying some of her considerable expertise in helping companies out of the familiar rut of doing the same thing over and over while expecting different results. She could help fashion up-to-date methods of hiring, training, and retaining the new employees of today. Part of our strategy was to have Elaine go out and talk to 10 consulting firms or individuals in related fields about work conditions, work stability, and what they liked and didn't like, the difficulties they faced, and their recommendations. I also had her go out with consultants on assignment to help her narrow the field, giving her a better sense of the kind of clients she would like to work for. She would also get a chance to see how she liked being a consultant day to day. That may seem like a lot of work, but embarking on a new career is a big undertaking. You already know that there is no magic wand anyone can wave to ensure it will all come out okay. You'll have to do the research, the homework, and the legwork. If you spend only a dime on preparation, don't expect to get $1 back. But if you spend an entire dollar, meaning giving your search 100% effort, you might just get $2 or $3 back. Life just works like that sometimes, and it's certainly worth some time and effort to land a satisfying position. I'll give you an example of another client of mine, Scott. He was the director of merchandising for Polo in Denver. Through a strange relocation process that the company went through, making the Denver corporate office suddenly disappear and miraculously reappear again in New York, he ended up being cashiered. As we went through the assessment and goal steps in Scott's job search, Scott decided he wanted to be on his own. He'd had it with corporate America. He came up with a unique concept, a way to merchandise product to increase sales, which he thought he could sell to athletic goods stores across the country. One of the tactics we used was to have Scott go to 1 or 2 local sports stores in the area and offer his services gratis. That means for free. And his approach to the stores was this: I'll come in and re-merchandise your golf equipment section for free. I think I can show you how to increase traffic and make more money per square foot. All I ask is that if you like what I do, you consider hiring me for other departments or other stores in the chain, at my standard fee, of course. And what happened is, the results, they loved the idea, and Scott got to decide if he really wanted to make a career of this. His approach was virtually a working interview, one that both parties benefited from. I hope you can see how crucial the third step of this process is. It's important to know who you are and where you are headed, but you have to know how to get to where you are going. That's where a lot of us fall short, understanding how we get there, how important it is to have a workable strategy or plan, how our chances of success increase dramatically when we do have a plan. Just as a team may have to change a game plan midway through the game depending on the competition, you may have to change or modify yours, but it's better to go into the game with a plan in mind. So we covered so far 3 steps. So the first step is assessment. The second step is creating a statement about yourself. And the third step is developing a strategic plan. Our next step is implementation. So this step involves taking the strategy outlined before, right? And putting it into action, which is the only way your plan will produce results. So I'll give you another scenario. My client Linda's strategy was to target a particular company she wanted to work for. Let's say it was J.D. Edwards, and try to get as much inside information as possible. She had done her research and heard great things about the people and the work environment. I suggested that as a way to implement the inside information she was getting, that she connect with an inside coach. She made several calls to the company and was fortunate enough to contact someone in the customer service group who took the time to tell her what it was like to work for J.D. Edwards. The inside coach told Linda where she thought the company was going and made some suggestions about who to contact and what approach to use as an employee applicant. Later, Linda told me that she couldn't have written a better script herself. Linda got an interview with the company vice president and had a job offer a couple of days later. What she did, like I said, she did the assessment. She wrote down what her goals are, and then she had implemented it. So by just calling on people and finding out about the company. So I'll give you another example of Kathy. Kathy has a master's degree in journalism, but felt she was unable to get the right kind of assignments from her past employers. The strategy we came up with was to connect with executives in the communication industry and get their feedback on the best way to avoid falling into the same trap with her next employer. What Kathy really wanted to do was help to determine journalistic direction, bring in new ideas, be an integral part of deciding what the final articles look like. The implementation of that strategy involved making a series of calls to people in her immediate network to find out if they knew any executives in the industry, and if so, if they could help her get an appointment or several appointments. That's how it turned out to be. She talked openly about her frustration in the past, being pigeonholed into positions she didn't like, ending up writing copy and doing other dreary assignments. She wanted a more active role in creating a vision and direction for communications company, be it radio, television, newspaper, or a magazine, perhaps even a public relations firm. The executives gave her some great feedback on how to do just that. It opened up a whole new world for her. In the end, she landed a great job with a cool company working with clients, presenting ideas, creating visions for their futures, doing work she considers to be creative and exciting. But all the strategy in the world won't do you a bit of good if you are not willing to go through the hard work of the implementation phase. And the last step is support. Some people need ongoing support as they plan and implement their career strategy. I'm sure you heard of GPS, Global Positioning System, that will tell you where you are any place in the world, right? So think of this step as something similar, a kind of PPS. PPS stands for Personal Positioning System. Its purpose is to help keep you informed about where you are in relation to your goal or vision statement. Remember, career coaching, for me, is not limited to finding a new job. It is also concerned with how to become a better performer where you are, offering advice on how to get along with your boss, on how to increase your salary, how to grow and receive more responsibility. The career highway is broad, and I'm sure for you it's the same. If you are a teacher, if you are an accountant, if you are a nurse, if you are a mechanic, it's all there. And first, you need to find someone you trust and respect. I usually don't recommend spouses, as they tend to be too emotionally involved to be objective. What you are asking for is a change buddy of sorts. Spend some time each week with this person, talking about where you are in the process, where you want to be, and the distance between them. Talking to someone about the issues involved often leads to the solutions that will help you get you where you want to go. I'll give you two scenarios, two more examples from my previous coaching clients. A client of mine named Norm is a perfect example of someone who desperately needed career coaching. Went through the 5-step process, yet wasn't able to go on and apply the principles we had worked on. He simply had a hard time. He simply had a hard time doing it and seemed unable to let go of old ideas about jobs, companies, and careers that no longer served him well. He had been in investment banking for years, and my assessment of him was that the times had pretty much passed him by. And even though he was bright and hardworking, he just couldn't seem to last with an outfit because he kept trying to use old ideas to solve new problems. We did the assessment, the goal statement, and agreed on this strategy and implementation. And yet, when it came time to actually execute the plan, Norm couldn't do it. His head was bobbing up and down in the right direction, but no action seemed to follow. Now, if he was smart enough to realize he needed a career coach, I kept thinking, and dedicated enough to spend the money to get the help he needed, why couldn't he follow the path he had laid out? Sadly, Norm served as an illustration of the fact that career coaching is no panacea. Spending a lot of time and money with a career coach is not going to do you any good if you can't implement the strategy you and your career coach set up. If you can get in motion, nothing will happen. I'm still working with Norm, and I'm determined to help him get over the hump. Now, the second scenario that I want to share is Marilyn. Marilyn is an example of the other side of the coin. She sought career coaching, went through the 5-step process, kept moving forward, and is currently enjoying tremendous success. For years, she had worked in high-end office furniture sales. She made lots of sales, won awards, earned good money, but she wasn't happy doing it. She had 4 kids at home, and even with a helpful husband, she couldn't actually create what she was hoping for. But now she's very happy with what she's doing. She's now a vice president of some company that I forgot to, I don't remember which one, but she's now really successful. Now, I want to go over with career mapping so you don't get lost along the way. Now, I want to remind you, my show is every Wednesday at 10 p.m. Eastern Time on Armed Radio. You can listen to the previous shows on Let's Talk Careers with Sara. That's on Facebook, and also you can join my group, Let's Talk Careers Inner Circle. By that, you can just listen to all my previous shows. You can listen to other members and connect with them with your questions, and so you can get support from them with answers. So we are moving along. Just as companies who use a business plan as a roadmap to find a path easier to negotiate, people who use a career map have a much better chance of reaching their destination. If you are let's say in Philadelphia and you want to get to New York, a map is a handy thing to have, and without it you might eventually end up in someplace else. So you want to have a map for yourself also in career. So eventually you will get, it's going to take you a long time, but it's possible that without a map you will never get anywhere at all. The same thing is true for careers, and people get lost, and it happens all the time. And just as there are like lots of different kinds of people, there are as many different career aspirations as there are different kinds of people. Consequently, there are lots of different kinds of maps. If you are someone who is motivated by financial rewards, your career map is going to look a lot different from that of someone who is interested to have to do with achieving inner satisfaction or being part of a successful team, or for whom the work-life balance is important. I recommend that young clients begin thinking of a career map even before they go to college, if possible. I can't tell you how many clients tell me that they spend thousands of dollars in 4 or 5 years of their lives getting a college degree and end up wondering what they were going to do with those degrees. I know in my own case, I initially wanted to be a doctor in my own little place, and we had a lot of doctors by all kinds of names, and they were great guys, and everybody loved to have a career that is more satisfying. But at the end, I decided I don't want to be a doctor. I want to be somebody else, somebody that can work with not sick people, but to work with people who are healthy and aspiring and want to move on with their life. So currently as a career coach. And I want to say that to get your career map that needs to be started early on in the process. You want to use the best route to get there, wherever there is for you. If you want to be a scientist, go talk to scientists in your field interest. Try to talk to the movers and shakers, the people who are making things happen, as well as the people who do the daily unglamorous things that make research and scientific endeavors possible. Same for prospective teachers, doctors, lawyers. And you do this precisely so you can discover what you want your destination to be and start making a map to get there. Making a career map be beneficial at any stage of the game. If you're just entering the career phase of your life, earlier is better. But even if you're re-entering the workplace, or perhaps you've been in your present job for 10 years and are thinking about a change, career mapping can be an invaluable tool, particularly if you are thinking of switching fields. It's never too late to make a map. Do the necessary research, conduct a few field trips. Wherever you are in your career, it is essential that you continue to build a network. Networking seems to have gotten a bad rap in recent years. I think that's partially because some people think networking means meeting someone at a local fern bar one evening and having an empty conversation, cleverly disguised as small talk, as you try to figure a way to use this person to your advantage. And I suppose some of that does go on. But what I see unsuccessful people today doing is developing a strong network of people both inside and outside their industry that they talk to and exchange favors or information with. Their contacts are usually mutually beneficial. They are give and take relationships. One can label such relations superficial, but such smoothing serves a purpose. We all need contacts, associates, and friends that can help keep us plugged into the world around us. I tend to view most complaints about networking as sour grapes, and there is nothing easier or less productive than being critical and judgmental of others. My hunch is that most people who are burned out got that way not because they were working long hours or having meaningless conversations, but because they're unhappy about what they are doing. Have you noticed that happy employees don't get burned out? I certainly experienced my share of burnt out and unhappiness when I worked in a corporate world, and while I worked long hours, that wasn't the principal cause. I now work more hours than ever, but the difference is that I love what I'm doing. Do you love what you are doing? If not, why not? And why are you still doing it if you don't like it? I often see clients that tell me they don't have time to do the research, the field trips, the work that needs to be done to map out a career. They're stressed out, they tell me, burned out. Truth is that they are stressed out not because they're working those long hours, but because they're not happy with what they're doing. One of the wonderful things that happens when you enjoy that, what you're doing, is that your stress level goes way down. Another truth is that you don't have time not to do the map, the research, and the rest of it. Look in the mirror and tell yourself that you don't mind spending 50% of your waking hours doing something you don't like to do. Say it slowly and watch the expression of your face. You probably can't help smiling. Of course you might. When I talk about developing a career strategy plan, the infamous map I've been referring to, I'm talking about an actual document. Typically, it's 1 or 2 page plan, a summary of your career strategy, like businesses, which sometimes develop plans that run to several hundred pages. It's a roadmap, a guide. It doesn't mean you absolutely have to go by that route. That's why we didn't chisel it in a stone. If you get to some place in your travels and the road's under construction, you might have to take a detour. Your company's been sold, your industry is going in the tank. A decade ago, you were working in the oil and gas field. Not to worry, you have a career plan, a strategy, and you know that there are alternate routes available. You know that, of course, because you've been doing your research. One of the reasons you are going to fare better than your neighbors is that you will have learned a look for the signs. Instead of driving right up to the detour and going, oh shucks, or whatever phrase you use, maybe you are stopped 100 miles up the road and ask a trucker, how is the road up ahead? He just might be able to tell you that's what's going on. The trucker is the stand-in for your network, your expert in residence that you have been talking to, all the people in your industry of interest that you've been checking with. Too often, I think we get stuck on a single path and don't think we can deviate from the straight line approach. That's the leather helmet school. Just one more run at the brick wall, Charlie, and it probably will come down. Another thing I hear from clients is a scenario that goes something like, I'm married, I've got 2 kids, I don't have time to do this, I can do that. Isn't it someone in Illusions who says, argue for your limitations and they are yours? And of course it's true. I'm not advocating that you quit your job overnight and sit around waiting for something to develop. But things change quickly in the marketplace. You need to be prepared for that. Make plans. Have your map ready with alternate route. Remember, Scott Peterson, who had that big job with Polo until the morning he came to work and found out they were moving the corporate office from Denver to New York, the same thing could happen to you. There are 2 questions that I get more often than any other. The first is, how can I make more money? The second is, how can I have more fun on the job? The implication is that the 2 are mutually exclusive. They are actually not, but it's usually not an accident when they come together. Work and play are 2 words that we often turn into either or words. Conventional wisdom is that you either work or you play. The concept that work can be fun, play, right, is an alien concept to most of us. Maybe that's the old Calvinistic streak that runs through the American psyche. And if you are in a job where you feel you can't move forward, can't change because all those excuses you've been relying on have become so real that they seem like universal truths, yeah, you are probably not going to be too happy about your job. You'll more than likely feel trapped. It's hard to have fun when you feel trapped. But if a place on your map turns out to be a little less than the oasis you thought it would be, you're free to pack up your tent and move. The career mapping plan I've developed, and which has worked wonders for the clients I work with, is made up of 9 specific steps. And I'm going to tell you right now. I'll give you just an overview. What should a career map look like? The first step of the career map is what I call an overview. It consists of what you want to accomplish in your near future. Your vision statement or goal statement has already established your long-term vision. The career map can look at the next year, the next 5 years. Whatever makes sense to you. You may want to have a 5-year plan that you'll review every year and revise as necessary. There are times when a career map needs to be changed suddenly. Perhaps your significant other finds a great job in a distant city, or you realize after a short time on the job that you are with the wrong company. There are many good reasons to consider and change your career map. Your immediate goal might be to maximize the amount of money you make in the next year, or it might be to maintain your present salary but spend the year educating yourself about new opportunities in your industry by spending an extra hour a day or so networking, doing research, going to seminars. The summary will help give you a strategy over the short haul. I worked with a client named Barry, who was a salesman for an office product firm. On career mapping, he decided that for the first year he was going to concentrate just on opening new accounts and building strong relationships. The second year his goal would be to maximize his income. He found out by talking to the experts in the field that his chances of making more money depends on his having a great customer base. So his career map summary laid out his plans to build his account base. Such career mapping or planning may seem simple and even obvious, but it is effective, and few people do it. The next is identifying your market. The next step that in your career map is to identify who your market is. It's the same that businesses go through. In Barry's case, once he knew he wanted to open as many new accounts as possible and build solid relationship with those accounts, he knew that he had to do some research on which industries were likely to continue growing and might need his products and services. Then the next step is career map marketing plan. Once you have a summary and have identified your market, you then need to develop a marketing plan. A client of mine named John, a lawyer, was working long hours, not making much money, and quite unhappy. In his overview, he wrote that he needed to identify a focus with a legal profession. His market included the top lawyers in Denver. To implement his marketing plan, he had to call each of these lawyers and get input about what the best fields were, what recommendations they might have for him, what they saw as the key ingredients to future development as a lawyer. Then the next step is identifying strengths and weaknesses. So the step 4 and 5 have to do with identifying your strengths and your weaknesses. That's what businesses do as well. The goal is to maximize your strength and minimize your weaknesses. But first you have to know what they are. Obvious, right? But perhaps, but few of us do it. And here is the examples that I want to share. The strength: team player, good communicator, willing to do what it takes, flexible, passionate about my work. And then now you're going to go through weaknesses. Sometimes impatient, expect too much of others, often want to do it myself. What else can be a weakness? Don't think before I speak, have a tendency to dig my heels in. So that's what you need to identify your strengths and weaknesses. Then you need to have a positioning statement. That's step number 6. Now, it is a positioning statement, which is another thing that successful businesses do on a regular basis. Businesses continually ask themselves, what businesses are we in? The same reasoning applies to one's career. In order to be good at what we do, we have to know what business we are in. The positioning statement spells out, here's who I am and here's how I'm going to position myself. Here are my capabilities, and here how I fit into my industry or company. It won't hurt to think like a specialist. I have a friend who works as a customer engineer for HP. He doesn't repair computers or widgets, he repairs only mass spectrometers. That's it. It doesn't seem to me that there would be enough mass spectrometers around to keep him busy, but he assures me that there are. And he doesn't repair just any old mass spectrometers either. He only works on the model, which for argument's sake, we call the 4000X. If you have 3000X, he won't come to see you. And this client is much in demand because he's very good at what he does. He got into the field because some years ago he talked to lots of people who told him that if he really wanted to nail down a good lucrative position, he should think seriously about learning how to fix 4000X. That's what they would do if they had to do it all over again. This client became very successful because he did his research, talked to experts in the fields, and followed up on their advice to get more training. Now, the action plan, the career map action plan. It is a scheme, mapping the scheme of the action plan. So now that you know what you want to do for the next year or two, you need to identify what tactics to use to carry it out. In Barry's case, once he knew what he wanted to do, increase the number of accounts over the next year, the action plan would spell out how he was going to accomplish that. And if Barry had decided that his major emphasis for the year was to make money, his action plan would be entirely different. So here is an example what Barry's action plan looks like. Number 1, he wrote target 100 companies as potential new clients by January 10, right? He has a couple of months. And then get names of key decisions makers within target by January 20. Send decision makers cover letter and company brochures by February 1st, so he gives himself a lot of time. And then make follow-up phone calls within 10 days of sending brochures. And then it's get face-to-face meeting with minimum 10 decision makers by February 15, and so on. He has it for the whole entire year. Now, the career map financial plan. That's the next step. It's put together a financial plan to monitor your income, your expenses, and how best to use the funds you have available. If your goal is to build an account based rather than maximizing earnings, then you are going to have to think about budgeting money a little differently. So we're going to continue with Barry's financial plan. So that's what he included. Create and track revised personal budget on Quicken, 50% reduction in monthly personal travel and entertainment expenses, a 6 months decrease in 401k contribution, an agreement by other family members to adhere to a reduced budget, right? The more you reduce budget, the more you can save. And the bottom line is that you don't want to be blindsided by shortage of money when you least expect it or can least afford it. Next, the career map review. The final step is the career map review plan. So how often should you stop on your journey? Take a look at where you are on your map. Check weather patterns and road conditions. Recommend that if you are new to career mapping, you do it on a weekly basis. A good time to look at it is Friday afternoon, so you can decide if you need to make any changes on the following week. Once you're more familiar with the process, once a month is usually sufficient. When you are an old hand at career mapping, once a quarter will probably keep you on course. Today's job market is changing so rapidly that the people who hope to do well are those who have an idea about where they're going, how they're going to get there, who they are willing to put their strategy down on paper and use it as a career map. Just as businesses have periodic reviews about where they are in relation to where they want to be and make changes accordingly, you need to go through a similar kind of periodic reviews. If you don't know where you are in the process or you are not sure where you want to go, it makes the review process that much more difficult. I see too many people making career decisions without a real strategy behind them. It's a little like those who attempt to shoot based on the command, ready, fire, aim. Occasionally you will get lucky and hit the target, but it won't happen often. So how do we put career mapping to work? So I'm going to give you another scenario. Lori was an emergency room nurse when I met her. She was burned out from the enormous stress of the emergency room environment. In addition, she was working all kinds of long hours and she wasn't making a whole lot of money. In making a career map, she decided that her overview, her short-term vision, was to make more money, and chances were she wasn't going to be able to do that in nursing. In reviewing her strengths and weaknesses, we discovered she had tremendous sales and marketing skills. Following a few of my suggestions, she ended up going to work for a company in a sales position. Her career mapping strategy called for her to learn everything she could about sales in her first year. Rather than go right into outside sales, she decided to take an inside sales position. Actually, a customer service position, so she could learn all she could about the business. She had a chance to talk to manufacturers, to customers, to people in purchasing, which gave her great background when she moved into outside sales. Her career map was laid out so that she could progress slowly rather than jump immediately into outside sales, where the big money was. The slower progression was set up to avoid having her become discouraged and end up quitting. One of her tactics was to network with successful salespeople, talk over coffee or lunch about how they did their jobs, and learn all she could about how to sell successfully, as well as about what the pitfalls were, so that in the second year she could hit the ground running. As a result of her well-planned strategy, the year after she got into outside sales, she was the top salesperson at the company. That is an example of what career mapping can do for you. Here's another scenario. I'm just checking the time if I have enough time to talk about it. Let's see. Okay, I have some few more minutes. Steve was the president of a major commercial real estate company in the Denver area, and he had 35 salespeople and did millions of business every year. You're probably thinking, what does this guy need a career coach for? He started working with me because he was feeling dissatisfied. He had what so many of us think we want: big job, big money, big image, the entire enchilada. But he wasn't particularly satisfied by his job. As we went through the career mapping process, we found that he was a great candidate for owning his own business. It was something he had always been interested in, so his career map began with focusing on starting his own business. The first year, while still working at his old position, he learned all he could about owning his own business, going to seminars, talking to business owners, learning what the upside. Since he didn't want to compete directly in the market he was about to leave, he decided to specialize. So the second year of his career map was spent deciding what he wanted to specialize in. Doing the necessary research and networking, his specialty became working the technology sector of the real estate market. Specifically, he could focus on helping fast-growing, smaller telecom companies find sites to build a switching plant in remote market. Yes, there were other companies dealing with the technology sector, but nobody was really specializing in this particular segment. In the third year, his past year, he actually rolled the company out. He is now going like a gangbusters, making huge deals with technology companies because it's his specialty. It gives him a big advantage over his competitors. He gives much of the credit for his success to career mapping. One of the questions I get most often from clients, prospects, or people who listen to my Career Coach radio show: how do I create the happy, successful career you talk about? The truth is, there are lots of ways. Finding balance in your work-life situation or doing something you love are only two examples, but the single most important way, in my opinion, to create that successful, rewarding career I'm always talking about is to be a star performer at work. And when I say that, people tend to look at me as if I can't be serious. Sure, easy for you to say, they often say, but I'm not a star. They recognize the truth in my statement, but simply don't think it applies to them. We apply the term star to those who are highly visible and successful people at work, in sports, or entertainment. But I'm not talking about being a Michael Jordan or Bill Gates or Steven Spielberg at your job. But I'm referring to is about being a star performer at the level you're playing on. If you're playing double A baseball, you don't have to do the things a major league does in order to be considered a star. It's the same in the business world. Being a star performer may mean being an outstanding performer in your little niche of your company. You don't have to get a write-ups in the Wall Street Journal to be considered a star. In my own career, becoming a star performer, whether it was in my department or division or company, had a ripple effect. It wasn't just the big raise or the big promotion that went with it, although that was certainly part of it. More to the point, it impacted the way people looked at me, how they talked about me, how I was viewed by management and clients. It opened doors. The walls that had kept me from access to other people simply vanished. I wasn't any different. I was still Sara Yusupov, but a girl from New York. But I was viewed by others as someone to watch, someone on the move, someone you could give an assignment to and know that it would be done and done well, and I made sure that it would. So there is no deep dark secret of being a star performer. Most everyone can achieve it if they understand their components. So why don't they? The truth is that most don't know how. Others don't care about becoming a star. To many people, a job is just a job. It has not occurred to them the workplace can be a place where they not only make money but also have fun and enjoy themselves. We have all too often latched on to the notion that work is drudgery. It may be for some, but it doesn't have to be. And the very fact that you thought that you are listening to the radio and are studying its content, is evidence that you care and you want to know how to be a star. Can the majority of people in the workforce become star performers? The answer is yes. I've seen people who have been described as not being smart enough to succeed, not working hard enough to succeed, not being motivated enough to succeed. Yet that is what they have done. Almost everyone can become a star performer. Everyone? Probably not. The majority of people who want to actually can become star performers, even if you have never been a star performer in the past. Such performance is not out of reach. When I attended all kinds of seminars, I'm surprised to find that star performers that in their schools didn't turn out to be the star performers in the game of life. And I don't want to go into details of that, but I want to say that some people who are A students don't get jobs that are getting high salary. They're actually getting, it's either same as I get or lesser. So it's because past is no guarantee of success or lack of success. So how do you become a star performer? Does it mean you have to eat, sleep, or leave your job 24 hours a day? Sure, it takes concentrated effort at times, but it doesn't mean you have to work 20 hours a day. And I want to explain that many of us have problems perhaps addressing on how to become a star. But since I am running out of time, I'm just going to tell you briefly about what star performers are and what they are not. So star performers are usually not geniuses. Okay, they can have lower IQ but do a good job. And you don't have to work 18 hours a day to be a star performer. And because it's all about what you do and how you do the work. And focus on results by knowing what to expect not just do a job. If you see that you're doing a job and it's not working, then you should switch, because if there are no results, no point of doing over and over and over. I am running out of time, so that will be another topic we'll discuss in my show perhaps next Wednesday. And I would like to say thank you for those who are listening to me. Thank you so much for doing your homework, by listening to experts like me about jobs, about resumes, and about how to be happy in a work environment. So I really want to say thank you again. So I'm going to see you next Wednesday at 10 p.m. Eastern Time on Armed Radio. Let's Talk Careers with Sara. You are tuning in on Armed Radio and Let's Talk Careers with Sara every Wednesday at 10 p.m. Eastern Time. I talk about careers and job hunting. If you would like to ask a question or would like to hear about previous shows that you have missed, you can find me on Facebook at Let's Talk Careers with Sara. You can learn about jobs, tips, and advice on my page. If you have a career-related question, you can just message me on Facebook.